interviewing. You know, that's what they doing. Stick around. It's about to get all roomy up in here. Remote Ruby starts now.
Chris Oliver, what's up?
Andrew
I'm back.
Mason, welcome back. I know I told you I was going to record last week, and I totally didn't.
And I told you I was going to bring my microphone with me, and I totally didn't. And then I was at Drew's house, and I was like, oh, Drew, what type of microphone do you have? Because I was like, oh, dude, I'll just ask him if I can borrow it.
Yeah.
And I forgot about that as well. I asked him what microphone he had, and then I forgot to ask him if I could use it.
I was totally going to do my own solo episode last
monologue.
Week. Just
dude, I would have loved
monologue, unhinged, remote Ruby after dark.
Do we both need to record a monologue episode? Just keep it in the chamber?
We totally should. I might still do that. I think that would be awesome. We might just have 2 episodes in 1 week instead.
Yeah.
I think that would be fun.
I just got back from Philadelphia and Lancaster, Pennsylvania. And I need to tell you,
how much cream cheese did you eat while you were there? That's the question.
None.
But it's Philadelphia cream cheese, bro.
Okay, I get it. I need to tell everybody this. For anyone going to RailsConf, right? There is a place right outside the Sheraton, and it's called Shays. I had the greatest Philly cheesesteak of my whole life.
Did you eat the Wagyu one?
Of course, dude. Of course.
Did?
Of
so
course,
I had the regular one because I was like, I don't know. The regular one was phenomenal.
Was it?
But
the Wagyu
one.
I love Philly cheesesteaks. I've eaten them all my life. And I was like, holy crap. I've never once in my life had a good Philly cheesesteak until this exact moment. It was a life-altering experience.
To be fair, the Philly cheesesteaks that most people have are like Penn Station or Jersey Mike's or Charlie's or whatever. Like a bunch of fast foodie things.
And they're always like sopping with oil.
It depends on how you do it, right? Like the cheese, if you're going to go the whiz route, I'm not that big a fan. But Shays was like, because when we landed in Philly, I was like early. Drew wasn't free until after work. So I was like, I got to go find a cheesesteak. And so I started looking around, and like the highest rated place turns out to be on the exact same block as the Sheraton. And I was like, done. That's it. And I went there as soon as they opened. That sandwich was good.
Yeah.
So
dude.
Like you walk out the door of the Sheraton and then down the alley. It's just like a walkable sidewalk alley, not like a car alley. And there you are, right there.
You are.
So I at least expect to have 2 or 3 stops there, probably
at minimum.
RailsConf.
And I'm saying this because if you see me and you're like, I'm about to go there, let me know because I'm going to come with you. Drew was like, hey, is there anything you want to do in Philly? And I'm like, I want a Philly cheesesteak. That's the only thing I want to do in Philly. Because like, I would love to see a Philadelphia Eagles game, but that's not an option right now. That's on my bucket list. But I was like, if that's not an option, like I want a Philly cheesesteak.
Speaking of the Philadelphia cream cheese, I forget when we were there last. Maybe it was for Drew's wedding, but I kept calling them Philadelphia cream cheesesteaks.
Dude, you got me in the mood for a bagel. I'm not going to lie.
Dude, I miss New York City bagels while I lived there. That was the bomb.
Speaking of New York City, so I just got back from my Podia retreat, and next year we're going to New York City, and I am very excited.
Ooh, do you know where?
It's in Manhattan.
Manhattan, Brooklyn.
It's in Manhattan.
We had an office in the Lower East Side. If you have a restaurant in New York City and you exist for more than 6 months, then your food is
banging.
Good. You can't survive with those rents in New York City unless your food is awesome. And like you're lucky because you get that much foot traffic, but you gotta have good food to survive there.
There's mention of a pizza tour that we might go on. And I'm like, that sounds great. Because you introduced me to the best deep dish I'd ever had in Chicago. And I'd had one in New York and did not enjoy it. But that one in Chicago was hidden. So
Lou Malnati is, that's the one. That's my favorite. You get that butter crust or whatever. And they will ship you a frozen pizza if you ever need one.
I heard about that.
In old Arizona.
That's tempting. I'm not bougie enough to ship food in yet, dude. I'm still I'm not quite there.
It's the original DoorDash.
Yeah. And dude, I did a lot of DoorDash back in the day.
I still can't, for the fees that they charge, I can't
I don't do
justify
it.
it.
I haven't
I'm like,
done it in years.
Even to get pizza delivered, I'm like, it takes me 2 seconds to get in the car, drive down the street to Pizza Hut and grab the pizza. And also, they give you better discounts if you get the carry out deals anyway.
Yeah,
so I'm like, well, screw it. I don't have to pay the extra tip and the driver and all this other stuff. And I get a cheaper pizza.
I have a Domino's and a Pizza Hut a block away. See, I've never lived anywhere where I'm like, oh, I can walk 1 block down the street and go to restaurants and stuff. So that's like brand new. When I lived in South Phoenix, I ordered DoorDash at least once a day for an entire year. And I just stayed in my house.
I think it was Oblivion. Maybe when that originally came out, I didn't leave my house for a week and a half. I just ran out of food. Then I just walked down 1 block to Subway and back, and then just kept playing video games.
I used to love Subway. And then I discovered Jersey Mike's, and then I was like, why would I ever eat at Subway's again?
Jersey Mike's is pretty good, yeah. We just got one here in town, and Subway has gone through
and they lost their ability to call it a sandwich because they were using like yoga bread material, whatever. Dude, we're getting
all their meat is some form of turkey, even though it's like ham.
We're getting our Bojangles in Phoenix, and I am so happy, dude. That's the only thing I miss about living in the South.
Nice. We must be hungry today.
Yeah. Okay.
Because all we're doing is
talk about some code. I've got code to talk about. So here's a question for you. Have you ever implemented an emoji picker?
Yes, but I think I just grabbed a library for it.
Yeah.
I didn't build it myself from scratch.
So there's a GoRails video out there or something? Because I might need to be looking into that.
If there is, it's from 2013 or 14 or something.
Before
like,
4
it's
times.
Old. Yeah.
2014, dude. I was still in high school.
So this was fun. I hinted at a few weeks ago, like acquiring an old Rails app. So that Rails app was onemonth.com, the YC startup I worked at back in 2015. So we were talking about adding certificates of completion to the Learn Hotwire course, which nobody's completed 100% yet. So someone needs to be the first to do it. But either that or my calculations.
I want to know how you're like, okay, there's this really annoying thing where I have a bunch of yellow arrow. Not to interrupt you, but I have
those are ones that you've started, but
I have finished them. It's like maybe there's 3 seconds left or whatever.
That would be it. So like when the video finishes playing, it'll automatically mark it as a green check mark. So if you haven't done that, then it's not considered complete. I might add a button to mark it as complete.
Dude, because I've completed a lot of these and it says they're not complete. I'm just, hey, ChatGPT, write me a script to scroll through.
But my analytics show you have not. But
okay, well,
so anyways, that code, when I was at 1 month back in 2015, I wrote a prawn class to generate certificates of completion for 1 month courses. So now that I own 1 month, 10 years later, I was like, well, I could probably look at that code. I wrote it in prawn and totally used that as inspiration this weekend to implement certificates of completion. So I came full circle and it's pretty great. I'll probably make a GoRails lesson on it because we don't have to use Ferrum or anything to load up a browser. Like you literally design a JPEG or a PNG as the background, like in Figma, and export it. Then use that as your template. And then the only things you have to do in prawn are like print the user's name in the middle of the PDF above the line where their name goes, and then print like the date that they completed it and the certificate ID in the corners. So like the code's really easy, and prawn is like a perfect solution for something like that because you just decide what's the size of my PDF. Well, we just do a regular piece of paper in the US. I forget what, 8.5 by 11. Is that right? I don't even know. Does it have a name? Like in Europe
It's like
or
a
whatever, you got anyways, yeah, it was just as simple as that. Like hop in Figma, generate that, and boom, you're done. I think it would make for a good little screencast too, but I'm excited. Their business shut down like in December, and the owner of it was like, hey, 1 month Rails was like our claim to fame back in 2013 and whatever, when they raised money from YC. And he was like, you might find the domain useful to own or whatever. And I was like, you know what? It'd be cool to bring back 1 month Rails, and maybe we end up doing 1 month Ruby and 1 month Git and 1 month HTML and JavaScript and some other stuff. So I think that's the plan. Although every day Heroku continues shutting down or deprecating things because it hasn't been deployed since 2022. The stack it's on is now no longer allowing new deployments. We could Dockerize it and do that if we want, but it's not worth keeping around. And it's new ownership too. Like I don't own their Stripe account. That was shut down. I want to start from scratch. I want to give everybody who's got an account on there an email saying, hey, 1 month has shut down. It's under new ownership now. We're starting completely from scratch. I don't want to take all these people's emails because they're very old. I don't want to spam all those people, but I do want to send them a note that's like, hey, we've deleted your account, but we're relaunching 1 month Rails and whatever else. So I got to work on those courses now, but at some point, onemonth.com will be back in business under probably a Jumpstart application, which will be fun. So they have a few courses right now that are still up there. The programming for non-programmers, which I don't even know where I would begin to recreate that course. HTML and CSS, Python, SQL, and WordPress. Python and WordPress, I have not done in so long that I don't think I could teach those courses, but I have been thinking about this too. Like if anybody's interested in teaching a course for 1 month, we could probably partner with people and they could record the course. We can help work on the curriculum and review it and edit and whatever else. But maybe it could be a way to get some other people who might want to teach Git or something. So if you have any ideas on doing that, you can send me an email, chris@gorails.com, and we should chat. I think it would be cool. We could do 1 month Rails and 1 month active record, 1 month whatever, 1 month active job.
What happens when a developer decides to record his own podcast ad? Let's find out. I'm Adam from JudoScale, and at JudoScale, there's no marketing team, no salespeople, and no customer support. I mean, we do have customer support, but it's just us, the developers. That's why our support is top-notch. Anyway, we're JudoScale. We're the autoscaler that actually works. We do it better than anyone else by tracking the right metrics and checking those metrics more frequently. And we wrap it all in a beautiful UI with powerful and intuitive controls. We work with hosting platforms like Heroku, Render, and Amazon ECS to gracefully handle your traffic spikes and backed up job queues. If you want that peace of mind and a much lower hosting bill, you should check us out. Visit judoscale.com/remote Ruby for your special gift as a remote Ruby listener. That's judoscale.com/remote Ruby.
I'd love to see a SQL course from you.
We have a little bit. Colin did that, didn't he? SQL for beginners. Colin did that 2.5 hours of content. And I think that's one of the things that like Colin put all this work into sort of the prerequisites for Go Rails, which is like learn Ruby, learn SQL, learn HTML, and then learn Rails. And I feel like those are kind of squandered on Go Rails a bit. So we may not take exactly what he's got, although maybe we will, because apparently Ruby for beginners is 6 hours of content, but there's only 10 videos. So one of these videos, oh my gosh, yes. These videos, some of them are 45 minutes long. This one's an hour long. So Colin put a lot of time into these prerequisites and it just makes sense. Let's make a 1 month Ruby course.
Yeah.
1 month Rails, 1 month SQL, 1 month JavaScript.
Because my little brother's about to graduate, and those are things like I would be like, hey, I would buy it for him and be like, hey, take this course, because why not?
There's still a big opportunity for it. I mean, education's tough right now because of AI and whatever, but the Learn Hotwire course, Drew messaged me earlier today and was like, getting back into the course. And he said it was reassuring because a lot of the stuff that he was going through, he knew already. So that was good. But then there were some like really cool tricks and stuff that he found that he probably wouldn't have otherwise. So get this. I've been wanting to do the testing section for the last couple months. And like, I've just been distracted with other things and haven't gotten to it. So this week, Tuesday, Wednesday, I'm sitting down, putting those videos together. I think I did Monday too, even though it was holiday. And every step of the way, it either goes way easier than you would expect it to, or you're like, seriously, this doesn't work. I got to go figure out why this doesn't work. What's wrong with it? So one of them, I'm like setting up. So we are using Rails authentication, and in Rails main, there's the session test helper now that gets included in the generator, which is Ace. You get sign in as and sign out methods you can use, and it just directly sets the cookie or deletes the cookie in your request, but only for integration tests. So I'm recording these videos. It works super smooth. Copy that in. And then I get to system tests and we'll sign in as this. And then it blows up because cookies does not exist because it's going through Capybara into Cupright or Selenium or whatever. And you have to
use Playwright.
Do something else. I've got it on just the base Selenium.
Use Playwright, dude. I'm going to link article from Justin Searles on how to do it, dude. It's easy
please do.
It's super easy to change over. And it works so much better for us.
So I ended up making a pull request to Rails to add system test support for sign in as, because the other solution that typically you'll see people do is visit new session URL, fill in the email address, fill in the password, click the button, then you get redirected to the root, and then that renders, and then you finally get to go navigate to the page you were trying to get to, which is just a pain. So Lewis Buckley, who works at 37 Signals, has a post from 2 or 3 years ago on using page.driver.browser.manage.add cookie to just inject a cookie. And it's a little annoying because when Chrome opens up, it's like data : semicolon is like the blank tab. So you actually have to visit a URL in your app before you can add a cookie, because otherwise the domains don't match and it's a security thing. So we do that, but then we can just inject the cookie. And I was like, well, screw this. Let's make a pull request to Rails 2. This is what we're going to use in the course to just skip the login process and make it fast. So might as well add that to Rails while we're here. Then I start going through some of the assertions, and there's test helpers for assert that there's a turbo broadcast or a turbo stream response and so on. And there's one of them for, what was it called? Assert turbo cable stream source. The like turbo stream from helper generates those. And you run it, and according to the docs, it should be fine, but it doesn't return anything. Yet the tests work just fine in Turbo Rails that use that same helper. And turns out the Capybara selector is using the default visibility. And so Chrome, I guess, treats a 0 by 0 pixel element as not visible, even though in Cupright, it's considered visible. So the tests in Turbo Rails were like, yeah, this is fine. Then you get into the default with Rails being Chrome and Selenium, and it's like, yeah, this isn't visible. But we did find this empty quotes on the page, and it's like, that's, I guess, the actual element it's finding that matches, but yet it doesn't have some sort of name for it. So it was really confusing. So I ended up making a patch to that in Turbo Rails, and I had to talk to Sean Doyle about it because they're writing a custom Capybara selector for it that can set the visibility plus some of the other selectors to filter down. And it's using a shortcut. So you can use like the turbo cable stream source as a symbol to trigger that selector. Fascinating stuff that I had no idea about, but ended up in the weeds. And when I went to go debug that, I go to Google, type in that assertion method name. The only results are the docs and the source code. And I was like, well, this is maybe a method that nobody's ever talked about on the internet publicly before. That's kind of weird. Like these days, that's not that common. Most things have been talked about.
Did you find like any repos, like public repos using it other than those ones?
There's nothing.
Wow.
I don't think I could find anything on it, but I didn't look too hard.
Right.
Because I was mostly like trying to figure out why is this not visible? And I guess, it's probably just a difference between, and I looked into the Capybara source code and it's like, yeah, just delegate this off to the driver. And in Chrome driver, there is a native method for displayed. And that's what it delegates to and just says, is this displayed or not? And that's going to depend on the browser and the implementation and stuff. So I ended up real far in the weeds. So they actually do use Cupright instead of Selenium for Turbo Rails' tests, I assume for better stability, even though I ran the test suite a handful of times and it's pretty flaky here and there for one-off tests. Honeybadger helps you fix errors, eliminate performance bottlenecks, and dig into the details faster than ever before. With support for Ruby, Elixir, and 8 other languages, it's the best way to gain real-time insights into your application's health and performance. Keep your apps fast and error-free at honeybadger.io. That's www.honeybadger.io.
I have used Cupright in the past, and it's okay. If anything, I'm not a proponent of Selenium, right? I've just had so much trouble with Selenium. Like Selenium
I'm
an opponent. It's great software, right? I'm not saying anything about that. It's just like there are some better, faster, more consistent options out there. Cupright being one of them. But I was at Justin's talk at Rails World, and he mentioned Playwright, and he mentioned some of the issues that he had seen and why Playwright had a better track record with them. And I was like, I have those issues. So I went home and upgraded Podia to use Playwright, and I haven't had any of those issues that like I used to see. Like our system tests are a lot less flaky. They're not flaky really at all anymore. I was also able to remove some of those like sleeps that you add for like
Oh yeah.
So it's a lot faster, and it's very, very simple to switch from Selenium to Playwright. It was only a few lines of code, and I haven't had any issues with it.
So one of the fun things that I also ran into was, so I'm testing Turbo broadcasts, and broadcast refreshes has a debouncer internal in the Turbo Rails gem. And for the life of me, I can't figure out why. I posted in our Discord this. So I wrote this test and it passes the first time I try it because I drop a binding IRB in so I can poke around. I created to do, and it's supposed to broadcast refresh, and it broadcasts, if there's a user assigned, it broadcasts their my to-dos page. I checked to see that 2 jobs were in queued, and then those updates are executed. And it doesn't work. Well, it doesn't work when I pull the binding IRB out. If binding IRB is in there, I don't have to do anything but close the session, and it succeeds.
Those are my favorite, dude.
I was so confused. Like, what is happening? Because what would happen is it would be 1 job in queued without the binding IRB. But when I do put it in there, there's 2 jobs in queued. And I was like, this doesn't make any sense. Clearly something weird's going on. And I get looking at the source code for Turbo Rails and recent issues. And Ben Sheldon is reported in April, end of April or something, like, hey, if my test suite runs too fast, this doesn't work. The debouncer actually, it never executes this thing. And sure enough, that's what it was. And there's basically like a half-second wait that it waits to debounce broadcasts. So if you have like refreshes that maybe you end up creating and updating a record 2 times within a half a second or 100 times within a half a second, it's going to debounce all those. So it's going to accept the first one, then cancel the first one and create the next one, and so on until there's a half-second gap and it actually executes the very last one. So my test was just running too fast, faster than a half a second, and it was just never executing that. And I'm actually not sure if there's a good way to handle that, because in the test, we run an active record update or whatever, and I'm not super familiar you know, the execution wrapper thing where basically like when a controller action is run, that is wrapped in this executor thing. And I think it's kind of what helps catch errors and then render 500 error and whatnot.
Right.
I don't know that that's something that can seamlessly be done in like a model test like I had. So we actually have to either sleep or we can actually look up the debouncer and call wait on it directly rather than doing our own external sleep for a half a second. I mentioned it to Jorge and I was like, hey, this is weird and I don't know how to fix this. And he suggested that because he'd been writing that wait in some of the test suite. So at least we have a solution for it. But that was one of the strange things. It was like, yeah, clearly not a lot of people have run into this yet. Or if they have, they've been very confused. Hopefully that will get fixed. I'm not sure what the best solution for it will be, but Ben Sheldon had suggested something around the execution context there or whatever. And so I'm curious to see what the solution for it becomes. But yeah, nothing like making videos and trying to teach stuff to dig up these weird esoteric issues. You know?
Yeah. I'm like, I didn't even write any tests for that.
And like in general, I probably wouldn't either. And it would be good enough just to say, did it in queue the job? And that would have been good enough. But because I was like being thorough in the course, I was like, I'm going to show you how to queue up the job, then execute the jobs, then ensure that it broadcasts those to the right channel. You know, so we have like a to-do being broadcast to a project. And so like we go through the entire process of testing that. And then the other one, surprisingly enough, I had those issues. The one I expected to be the worst was I wanted to do a video on testing stimulus controllers. And so what better one to test than the sortable JS one? And if you look up testing sortable JS in a system test, Capybara or Selenium, it's basically people being like, yeah, this isn't really possible. Don't worry about testing it because it works in a little bit weird way. But I did find a Stack Overflow post from like 2019. Somebody, I think that was working on Capybara was like, yeah, the way sortable works is not exactly the way you would expect it to. And then there's an update at the end of that comment that's like, yeah, I went and made a few changes to Capybara that should fix this. And I was like, fingers crossed. I really hope this works. Sure enough, I like put 2 to-dos into test suite, drag one onto the other one, use the drag to helper. I don't have full control over like drag it and put it before or after this element. It's just like always going to be afterwards, but good enough to test sortable JS. And it just worked. And I was like, no freaking way. The only thing that didn't work was sortable never called the backend. And I was like, that's confusing. And I was telling Colin the solution to this yesterday. And I was like, all right, quiz for you. If you're in test mode, do CSRF checks run? Because as it turns out, my test dragged and dropped the element correctly. But on finish of that, it runs a fetch request to update the position, right? On the back end. So I'm testing the position and it's the same. And I'm like, that's not right. Well, in the browser, the JavaScript failed because the lookup for the meta tag for the CSRF token was like, there is none. And I was like, that's weird. And I go to the layout and it's like, well, it's definitely rendering the CSRF meta tags. But in test mode, it's disabled by default for speed. I'm pretty sure it doesn't really benefit for any other reason to turn it off in development or test mode. I mean, so it doesn't render the CSRF meta tag, which I'm sure I've seen that before, but it didn't matter. And normally you don't even think about it. So I haven't seen that maybe in 10 years. Yeah, I was like, I guess I'll just change the JavaScript. If that meta tag doesn't exist, don't try to read the content from it. And my test passed and it saved everything just fine. And I was like, well, okay, that's it.
I have a adjacent question for you related to like what happens in the test environment.
Yes.
I had a very bad idea the other day. All right. I mentioned this before that like the
every day, right?
Right. We have to generate assets for our unit tests because There's some tests that require I can't remember the exact.
Does it reference the manifest or something?
It like checks something in the body or something. Like there's some, like, expect like blah, blah, blah to be in blah or whatever. And there's a few other tests that I've found that end up like causing the assets to be generated.
I guess that makes sense for Podia, because I was just going to say, if I create a Podia store, I'm going to want to upload my own logo, and you're going to want to test to make sure it's my logo, not Podia's logo on your storefront. Weird things like that, I'm sure.
Well, so if I turn off like running Rails asset generate, whatever, precompile, whatever the command is in CI, the thing that fails is the fact that it's trying to like load the style sheet and it's in Sass. And it's, I can't parse this because I need CSS. So hear me out. In the unit test, if that's the only thing that's causing, like, the only reason we need to generate it is because of Sass, what if I just stub out the style sheet link helper in the unit tests?
Yeah.
That way it won't load. I feel like I need them in the system test because you want to see the exact way it failed. But in the unit test specifically, I don't want the style sheet link tag to render because it doesn't matter. I will never see it, right? So it's just testing what exactly.
Yeah. And I don't remember which is the rake task that triggers.
Also, if you're using the JS bundling Rails and CSS bundling Rails, there's hooks in those as well that tell it to like generate.
Yeah, because the test bin Rails test, maybe the command that triggers the precompile. I don't know. It would need to be there for system tests, but those you can run bin Rails test system just fine. And so that's a good question. I don't remember which one triggers that, or if you have to explicitly do it in CI.
I'm specifically doing it in CI, but if I specifically don't do it in CI, then I get that Sass error, which is interesting because sometimes I'll see when I change branches or whatever, like it'll notice that the assets are different and generate. When I try to run Rails test, it will generate them. But
I guess if you didn't run that command in tests, then like in development, you probably have a watcher or something that's watching files for being changed. So without it, it may not have any reason to trigger the precompile itself or whatever. So that kind of makes sense.
Right.
You may have to run it. The asset pipeline is always one of those things where like especially with PropShaft, like it's pretty straightforward, but there are little nuances to it that will catch you. You'll learn it, figure out what the issue was that you were doing wrong, and then forget about it in a couple months. And like you'll run into it again a year later. And then you're like, I know I saw this before, but I don't remember how any of this stuff works, like the order of operations or whatever, those little things that always trip me up.
We're not using PropShaft yet. Although I feel like
it's been great.
I told someone that it might have been Jason, but I don't want to say it was because I can't remember exactly. I was like, I feel like we can switch to PropShaft. And that person was like, there's one specific thing in our app that we can't switch until we like take care of it. And I can't remember what that thing is or even if that's still a thing, but
I know a little bit of that was troublesome with JS bundling in the sense that like you may have imported icons into your React components or whatever. And so they need to be output to a specific location.
I think we do
with PropShaft so that they're like pre-digested by JS bundling and handled correctly there. So it might be something you've got already set up at this point where it's handled or whatever. It is nice to not have any of that stuff with sprockets anymore because it's just straightforward. The files need to be in this directory and they get hashed and they get output to this directory. And that is it. Like it is really straightforward. I guess there are a couple little things like the URL in like CSS. If you reference an image, then it's got to swap that with a hashed version of the image, digested version of the image path. But little things like that are about all that's left as pre-processing in PropShaft. So we moved and had the same thing where there were a few things we referenced in our JavaScript that had to get adjusted. But once that was done, like it's just been nice, super easy, nothing really to worry about.
Nice.
I've been happy with it.
Very nice. I will say their VS Code came out with an official Postgres extension, their own official extension from Microsoft, and it has like a Postgres like chat participant, and you can like right click to visualize your schema. And just if you're using Postgres, I can probably just delete this database tool or this database app I have, and I don't even need, like, we use Metabase a lot. I was like, why? I don't even really need to go to Metabase now because I can just connect directly to the replica and have ChatGPT write my queries for me, basically.
That's cool. That is something that getting those things right with joins and other, when you get into more complex queries, like being able to just wrap your head around however many different types of joins can be troubling enough. And if you can just ask AI to generate that for you, then you don't have to really worry about those details, which can be very helpful because it's not really the thing that you need to know to get the job done. You're just like, please just give me the data.
Yeah. Look, I just need to know how many of these users have this thing, and then we can move on with our lives. I put a link to the announcement blog post in the show notes. So
nice.
Check it out. Pretty cool.
Nice. Well, sir, I'm going to get back to my next pull request to Turbo Rails because I found those missing assertion helpers for Turbo Frames.
Nice.
So I was making a PR for that as well. So just trying to do my
give
part.
Give him back, dude. Real hero.
I hate making the videos that are like, well, today this doesn't exist, but I probably should make a pull request for that and fix this thing or whatever. I'd rather just send it directly, ship it directly with the correct version, the simple version.
Right.
But you find some things, you make some fixes, prove things, and it's better all around. So I'm happy with that. But yeah, it's been good. The Learn Hotwire course has been getting some great feedback from people. So I'll get that. I think I'll get that complete button done, and then you'll have the control of being able to mark it as completed. And then see, that's the thing. Then somebody's going to want to, hey, I accidentally completed this. Can you uncomplete it for me? And then there'll be more rabbit holes and other features to add.
Of course. There's always more features to add.
There is. One thing I need to do is the sidebar, somebody pointed out, was just scrollable with the rest of the page, and like should make that separate so it's scrollable separately. And I'm like, yes, I know, but there's always more stuff to do.
Yep.
Never ends, man.
Never does, dude. All right.
Well, good catching up. I will talk to you next week.
Sounds good.